In August 2013, 19-year-old college student Bryce Laspisa vanished without a trace after a series of bizarre and haunting events. His disappearance has become one of the most mysterious missing person cases of the decade, not because of what we know, but because of everything we don't. Bryce was born and raised in Naperville, Illinois, the only child of Michael and Karen Laspisa. His parents described him as bright, artistic, and kind, a young man with a promising future. In 2012, the family moved to Laguna Niguel, California, and Bryce enrolled at Sierra College, near Sacramento, to study graphic and industrial design. First, everything seemed fine. Bryce was friendly, outgoing, and had a close circle of friends. But by the end of the summer of 2013, something in Bryce had changed. Friends began to notice odd behavior. His mood darkened, his sleep schedule shifted, and he became distant. His girlfriend, Kim Sly, would later tell investigators that Bryce had started drinking heavily and experimenting with Vyvanse, a prescription stimulant used to stay awake and focused. In the days leading up to his disappearance, Bryce's friends were deeply worried. He had told Kim that she would be better off without him. He began giving away personal items, including his Xbox and a pair of diamond earrings his mother had given him. When Kim confronted him, asking what was wrong, Bryce simply said he had a lot to think about. On August 29, 2013, Bryce called his mother and told her he planned to drive home from college, a 6-hour trip south to Laguna Niguel. His parents were happy to hear it. They thought maybe he just needed a break. But what should have been a normal drive turned into a chilling 2-day odyssey. That night, Bryce left Kim's apartment in Chico, California, sometime after 11:30 p.m. He told her he was heading home, but by the next morning, he still hadn't arrived. His parents' phone rang at 1 a.m., but when they picked up, Bryce wasn't on the other end. It was a voicemail, a brief, quiet goodbye. Concerned, Karen and Michael tried calling him repeatedly, and eventually, Bryce answered. He told them he was fine, just tired, and that he'd be home soon, but he never showed up. Through phone records and credit card activity, investigators later pieced together a strange and disturbing timeline. Bryce had driven hundreds of miles that night, but instead of heading south toward home, he stopped repeatedly, sitting in his car for hours at a time in random parking lots. At 9 a.m., he was spotted in Buttonwillow, a small town just north of Los Angeles. He called roadside assistance after running out of gas. The man who helped him, a truck driver named Christian, said Bryce seemed calm but a bit distant. Christian filled his tank and watched him drive off. But hours later, Bryce's parents still hadn't heard from him. When they called Christian back to check, the man was surprised. Bryce was still there, parked in the exact same spot, sitting motionless in his car. He had been sitting there for nearly 9 hours. Worried, Bryce's mother spoke to him over the phone, urging him to come home. He assured her he would, and that he was fine. But nothing about his actions that day made sense. Bryce eventually got back on the highway that night and started heading toward Los Angeles. 2 a.m. he called his mother again. His voice was calm, reassuring. He said, "I'm going to sleep in my car for a bit. I'll see you in the morning. I love you, Mom." Those were the last words she ever heard from her son. At 5:30 a.m., a highway patrol officer noticed a 2013 Toyota Highlander crashed near Castaic Lake, just north of Los Angeles. The vehicle had plunged down a 25-foot embankment and landed on its side. Inside, the airbag was deployed, but the car was empty. Bryce's wallet, phone, and laptop were still there. The back window had been kicked out from the inside. Police searched the area immediately, fearing Bryce had been injured and wandered off. Tracking dogs followed his scent for about half a mile, toward the lake, before it vanished completely. Divers searched the water for days, but no body was ever found. What's even stranger is what they discovered from the car's data. The ignition had been turned off not long before the crash, meaning Bryce had likely driven off that embankment intentionally. But there were no signs of blood, no signs of serious injury, and no footprints leading away from the crash site. It was as if he had simply disappeared. Investigators considered several theories. Some believed Bryce had taken his own life, but with no body and no evidence of injury, that seemed uncertain. Others speculated he had suffered a psychological break, possibly triggered by drug use, and wandered away into the wilderness. A third, darker theory suggested he may have staged his disappearance, escaping to start a new life. Over the years, dozens of possible sightings have been reported, but none have ever been confirmed. Search teams, private investigators, and family volunteers have scoured Castaic Lake and the surrounding mountains repeatedly, but Bryce Laspisa remains missing to this day. His parents, Karen and Michael, have never given up hope. They still maintain a website and social media pages dedicated to finding him. Every year, they share his photo, reminding the world that Bryce was more than a mystery. He was a son, a friend, and a young man whose story deserves an ending. The last trace of him, a mother's phone call, a crashed car, and 3 haunting words. "I love you, Mom."